Well, thank you everybody for coming to our session. It's a pleasure to be invited to this Pacific Trade Show this year virtual event. So I hope you guys been enjoying the event so far, and that you have been able to listen to a bunch of different guest speakers that we had throughout the event. So my name is Emiliano Entrocaso. I am one of the export health advisors here at EDC. And I'm going to be joined by Jennifer Cook, who is the corporate lead for the Women in Trade initiative that we have at EDC. So today's agenda has a few things that we're going to be discussing. We want to ensure that you understand that Women in Trade is the key to success, and we put together a presentation that is going to allow you to hopefully, if you're not exporting, we want to make sure that we empower you to go for it. It's not difficult, but it's also not easy. So we like to set up some expectations in there. But I think that some of the tools that we will be providing you today is going to be a great toolkit for you to hopefully jump into that. And we'll hope to have enough time to have some question and answer period as well. At EDC, our mission is to help the companies grow and succeed in international markets. We partner with your financial institution so that we can offer you different solutions in terms of financing, insurance, also knowledge, which is part of what we're going to be doing today. And once you have grown, we also have connections that we can provide with the different programs that we have. It is important to know that there are ways to improve your cash flow and your operating line of credit, and that's something that we can help you with when the banks are a little bit reluctant to open up credits and they want that guarantee that EDC brings. And as you know, through COVID, we had to make some changes to the way we operate, and the government of Canada has provided us with a domestic mandate. What this means is that we not only help companies that are in the export environment, but also some domestic companies, as long as part of the supply chain of trade. So we are hoping to, with the different programs that the government has put in place, to be able to help you and ensure that your specific needs are met when it comes to financing and insurance and all those things that we do. So I want to make sure that I have enough time. So I'm going to pass it over now to Jen Cook, who is going to be speaking to you in regards to the Women in Trade strategy that we offer here at EDC. And we're going to be going back and forth a little bit throughout the presentation, so you don't get tired for us, okay? So take it away, Jen.
Thank you, Emiliano. Just quickly, we seem to be having some trouble seeing the slides. So we're only seeing half the slide, so I'm not sure if you want to stop sharing and reshare. That will be helpful. But in the meantime, I will get started, and thank you for those of you on the line with us. We're very excited to be here today to talk to you about, women in trade. And to start out, I just want to, emphasize that more now than ever, EDC is committed to engaging and supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs in trade, including women-owned and women-led businesses. And we're doing this really with intention. We know that the number of women entrepreneurs is growing and can have enormous benefit to our economy, to our community. And it's our goal to support them to grow and to scale globally. So as champions within Canada's women's entrepreneurship strategy, we're reaching out to women entrepreneurs more proactively, and we have a strategy to plan and focus and invest, as well as measure our progress in supporting women-owned and women-led businesses. So, if you want to learn more, you can check out EDC's web portal dedicated to women-owned businesses at edc.ca/womenintrade with dashes in between. Next slide, please, or just, yes, that slide. Thanks, Emiliano. Basically, we're investing resources, including onboarding myself as a dedicated lead to be responsible for a national strategy for how we will increase support to women entrepreneurs. And we're setting specific objectives for us to work toward in that regard. We're working very closely with the entire ecosystem to support women entrepreneurs and ensure really that you have the support that you need. Next slide, please, Emiliano. And for some reason it keeps sticking. It's only advancing half of the slide, but while you fix that, I'll continue. EDC's strategy is grounded in 5 main pillars, and it's really about inspiring and building awareness among women entrepreneurs about taking their business global and about how EDC can help. The second pillar is about providing education, which means giving the knowledge and skills so that women can export with confidence. Thirdly, providing connections both to the ecosystem of organizations that can help as well as to opportunities internationally. Fourthly is to enable more women entrepreneurs with the financial tools that Emiliano spoke about, and we'll get into a little bit more detail later. And finally is to empower more women entrepreneurs with our own corporate support for gender equity and women's economic empowerment broadly. At the end of the day, our success will be when there's more women-owned and women-led businesses providing their goods and services to the world. So what we thought we'd do to kick off today is just share an example of a great inspiring success story, which talks, will give you a sense for how EDC can support women in trade. Marie Chevrier is the founder of Sampler, and she set out to help consumer packaged goods brands distribute their samples in more targeted ways by leveraging her technology solution. Sampler uses software to deliver product samples, everything from cosmetics to baby products, to digitally targeted consumers all over the world. Instead of ambassadors handing out the samples on street corners, samples are delivered right to the customer's home. And their technology really defines the target audience for its customers and ensures that their samples are getting into the hands of the right people. Finally, they also help their customers' brands gather insights on who their brand cheerleaders are. Since its launch, Sampler's developed great relationships with CPG brands, and they've landed some really amazing opportunities, including outside of Canada. One partnership in particular that helped get Sampler on its global journey enabled them to work with L'Oreal, securing a contract for 11 countries right away. And that, at that time, is when Sampler turned to Export Development Canada for support. Because this contract required a very fast turnaround, and it required a lot of the company's resources to be committed to delivering this contract, they wanted to really make sure that they were protected. Sampler worked with EDC to structure an accounts receivable insurance policy that would protect them against the risk of non-payment in all 11 of these countries. And Sampler explains that their customers drive the markets that they focus on as they continue to build new relationships with new CPG customers. As they've grown, they've also required increased working capital and investments into their business for funding. And these are also areas where EDC has worked to support their growth. We'll talk a little bit more about these financial solutions later on in our presentation, as I mentioned. But I want to talk just briefly about why it's so critical to consider exporting as a growth strategy. At the end of the day, many studies have shown that, including one in particular by Deloitte a few years ago, that exporters tend to do better. They generate more revenue, they're more innovative, and they're more competitive by playing on a global playing field. Also, businesses that export tend to be less risky because they've got greater spread of risk across multiple markets. They have more customers to sell to, so they're better equipped to handle some of the ebbs and flows of economic upturns and downturns. So it allows them to smooth out their sales, working in different hemispheres or parts of the world can also even out some seasonality depending on the business. At the end of the day, it all leads to more resilient companies that stay in business longer. And the good news is that this is what EDC's mandate aligns to. It's helping with exports and or international business, and we really want to help companies in that regard. In terms of women entrepreneurs, we know there's great potential for more women entrepreneurs to export. In Canada, 11% of Canadian women-owned businesses are exporting today, which represents approximately 12,000 companies. We also know that they're 4 times more likely to be larger than non-exporters. We know that if we can increase the number of women-owned businesses who export in Canada, even by just a small amount, it can have really tremendous impacts on our economy, and it will definitely, be better for everybody. There's many ways to get started with exporting. Often companies follow their existing customers, as we heard in the sampler story, to sell to their locations outside of Canada. Or perhaps they leverage partnerships with a complementary business that helps them build a stronger proposition together to take to export markets. As I mentioned, technology can be a huge enabler. EDC recently did a webinar with Google and Shopify about selling online, which you can certainly catch that webinar on demand from our website. And finally, some companies actually invest in a presence in another country to help expand their global sales. There's a few key things to success when exporting that we tend to like to emphasize. First of all, knowledge and preparation and planning are so important. You want to uncover where the demand for your product or service is and what's your unique value proposition for that market specifically. In Canada, we're very fortunate. We have so many free trade agreements to make it easier for our companies to sell products and services to up to 1.5 billion new customers. So it's important to understand how those FTAs can really help you and your business access new markets. And really important is to invest the time to understand the market, leverage the ecosystem of support from organizations that are available to help. Putting this all together into a market entry plan is critical and can help you really make sure that you have sufficient capital, both human and financial capital, to make sure you can grow successfully. So moving on to today's session, it's titled A Path to New Markets. And through what Emiliano is going to talk about, you're going to get an introduction and overview of some of the topics that are available in full courses that can go into much more detail. In particular, he's going to talk about selecting a new market for your goods or services, talk about a little bit about international costs and other considerations, and why you should have an export plan. He's also going to be sharing some resources that will be very helpful for those Canadian companies looking to export. So Emiliano, please take it away.
Thank you, Jen. And what I like to always start with is, on a daily basis, we get phone calls from different companies looking to start. And, sometimes they're very, very excited about going into markets, and they come up to us with 20 markets that they want to go in because they believe in their product. And, as much as we appreciate their enthusiasm to go and export, I usually have to give them the bad news to them and let them know that yes, it's great that you have all this this great product, you have this great ideas of where to go and everything, but one mistake that they make all the time is trying to go at all the markets at once. So one of the things that we want to make sure that at least you guys learn today is that it's very important to understand your market, where you're going to be going. And here's some questions. And by the way, I think you're going to be receiving this presentation as a PDF. So don't worry about making notes right now. But these are some of the questions that you have to ensure you answer, and that you want to make sure that your product is specifically available for this particular market. So, for example, one of the very, very important questions is once you export the product, can you beat the prices of your competitor if you're going to be going to a particular market? Because if you're not able to do that, you have to have a product that is of, let's say, much more better quality, or a product that it's superior in the features that it has. So there's all these questions that obviously we want you to take a look at, and we want to make sure that you are aware of, so that you can ensure that when you're going into a particular market, the size of the market, it's considered, but also the growth potential. Are you going to be in that market for the long run? It's okay if you're going to be in the market for a small period of time, but at least you have to make sure that you're going to be able to maximize those sales for those products or services. Another area that companies have to look at is at the market accessibility. What happens if, for example, that particular market you want to go into has a high tariff or there's specific barriers to trade? Does it mean that you can only go to a market that has a free trade agreement? Well, not necessarily. You should know that there are markets where there are not free trade agreements, let's say between Canada and that market, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go there. It's just that the free trade agreements open those doors to ease the trade, and it makes it a lot easier for companies to access the markets itself. You should also know that if you're, let's say, shipping products or your products, let's say, require testing, are you going to be testing them in Canada? Are you going to be testing that in the market? How is that going to be related to anything that has to do with potential permits that you may need for the product? For example, if you're making a medical product, they might need testing in both the export country and also the import country. So these are things that you need to consider when it comes to accessibility of the particular markets. And lastly, business and political environment. This is one of the places where sometimes you don't consider as much, because you might thinking, well, my product is okay to go in that market, but what happens if that market is not a stable market, right? Like, how are you going to be dealing with? Allowing yourself to know what those risks are in the market is what's going to make you is what's going to make and reduce your risk. Because anytime that you're going to be going internationally, you have to make sure that you're mitigating risk. So to do that, you have to do some research. Basically, here's some of the considerations that companies exporting to other markets should know. When it comes to macroeconomic data, there are some other areas that you want to ensure your research. And for example, at EDC, we have tons of resources that are free and available to the public to go and use. And even for those companies that are not from Canada, because I know there's a lot of them in this particular event, you could use these resources still. They're all open to the public. You might just need to sign up and register your email, but we'll be able to show you some of those trade tools that I talk about, and that are going to allow you to go through the different potential markets, what sectors are good for that particular market that you're going into, which it will help you a lot if you're trying to sell something and it's not really a good potential to that market, and you had it in your head. That's going to be an easy way for you to put that market away and then not deal with that and then focus on another market. So this is how you sometimes from like 20 markets, you start reducing the amount of markets that you want to access. I'm also going to be sharing with you a link to the FitSkills Lite units that is called Selecting a Market Entry Strategy, so that you can actually learn more, and it's something that you can download for free. And don't forget to also look at the cultural and lifestyle aspects of a market. So if, for example, you want to sell in Brazil, maybe making a Facebook campaign in Brazil will yield more sales than if you're going to any other Latin American markets where maybe Twitter is going to be the social media that you may want to use. So once you have done all this research on the different markets, make sure that you prioritize so that you can further investigate whatever market you're deciding to go to. So look at the number of customers that you may have, see which countries have the least potential barriers of entry. Maybe go where there's a lot less competitors for you, because that will make it a lot easier for you. And always try to use a stable political environment. If you go into a stable political market, that will help also mitigate some risk. So when you're going to consider a new market, and let's say you're ready to go, you have to know also some of the extra costs that are coming with going into another market. So as you know, with COVID, we changed the way we do business at the moment. And, although the borders are still open for commercial trade, maybe right now, like visiting a country is not accessible. So normally you will, you will have in your budget a certain amount of money that it's specific for marketing, where maybe you will use it into going to a trade show or into going to a particular trade mission, for example. So there are some programs in there that we will be talking a little bit about that can help you support that. Now, these programs are for Canadian companies. So, if you're a company that is from a different country, just check those local eligible grants that you may have in other markets, because I know there are, just they're not sometimes maybe as obvious as we have it here in Canada. So in Canada, for example, if you wanted to cover the cost of a trade show, there is a program called Can Export that can allow that, or can help you, do that specific. There are also some other grants that you could use, and for example, they're now covering the cost of attending virtual conferences such as this one. So there are ways to still sell your products or showcase your products even though you cannot travel to that place right now. Okay. One thing that I will suggest for everybody that is considering these grants is to have an export plan ready, and we'll give you some resources in a few slides so that you can see what those are. But always think about different costs that are going to be available. So like, let's say you have to translate materials, those costs could also be increasing the way you do business in that particular market. Here you have a list. I'm not going to go through each of individuals, but just think about, like, if you have to modify your product, how much will that cost? What about like distribution costs if you have to store the product in a different market? Or what about like the export credit insurance that you may need? That also has a cost. So those, or specifically also the one that is very important for for companies is the exchange rate costs, because those currency costs, they fluctuate quite a bit. So depending on the amount of transactions that you're going to be doing, that's what will determine how much money you have to spend as well. So there is a unit called the cash flow management for the FIT skills that you could use to learn more about this particular cash flow cost. And now I want to talk a little bit about the what needs to be put in on the export plan. And if I ask right now, I cannot see you guys, but I'm sure that if I ask if you have an export plan, the majority of you would not have one. So this is something that, it's kind of like your homework for after the conference to start building your export plan, because it's going to help you guide your operations. It's going to help you understand better how your company is going to expand into another market. It's going to give you an idea of like what resources you have and what resources you're going to need. And if you are applying for a government program or a government grant, this will allow you to also answer many of the questions that the applications will request through that process. And a very important thing is also to ensure you have a budget that shows revenues and expenses. So including, let's say, a cash flow statement will allow the officers or even the financial institution to see how much money you're going to be needing to do your operations, as well as how much money is coming in and out depending on the seasonality of your product, let's say. So when you get the slides, these links that you see here are all linking to the specific resources. So this is one of the resources that you could use to build your export plan, as well as the government grants for those companies in Canada. You can take a look at Innovation Canada, and this website allows you to go through a lot of the different grants available for your business. And as many companies that are in women operated or women owned, these are some of the associations that we want you to consider so that you can see what services they have and how they can help you expand your business. In here you have also the Fit Skills downloadable units that I want you to take a look at. And now I'm going to switch it over back to Jen so she can talk to you about the financial tools and how EDC can help.
Emiliano, I feel like we could use another 3 hours to go through a lot of this information. So as Emiliano mentioned, we will share these slides through the organizers of this conference to share out afterwards. Very quickly, I'd like to go through some tools. And essentially, there are many considerations as companies start to scale and grow through international trade, many things to be aware of and to just make sure that you're prepared for, to have the access to the capital that you required for larger contracts, explore different options for financing and risk mitigation. At EDC, we provide several financial tools. I'm only going to very highlight high level 2 of these tools, but there's many more, which again, you can learn more about on our website at edc.ca. The first is our Women in Trade Investments Program. This was launched almost right at the beginning of our dedicated strategy for women in trade. This is now $100 million contribution or a fund that is for investing equity directly and through funds into companies founded and led by women. It's really to support earlier stage Canadian women-owned or led companies that are really growing and scaling through exports. And as I mentioned, it's for companies that are raising equity as part of their capital, the EDC could be a viable partner for them to consider amongst their other potential venture capital or private equity suppliers. At this point, we're looking at companies raising seed or Series A level funding, companies that are commercialized and already have sales, approaching the $1 million in annual recurring revenue. The next slide, please. Yes, the other tool I really wanted to emphasize for companies is credit insurance. Credit insurance is really invaluable as you begin to sell outside of Canada. It's applicable to both goods and services and allows you to transfer the risk of non-payment. As you start to export, contracts tend to be larger and present more risk, like the story of Sampler that I told you about. Maybe it's into markets that you're not aware of. Credit insurance can offer 3 things. It allows you to have a sleep at night factor when you're selling outside of Canada. It can also allow you to be more competitive by offering more competitive payment terms to customers. So there's many advantages of that financial tool. I wanted to highlight very quickly some of the other solutions in EDC's trade toolkit, many of which Emiliano mentioned. The first is our Export Help Hub, which is a tool that really just helps you get answers to any of your trade-related questions. If it's a question that has not been asked before to our trade advisors, you can reach out, and EDC's trade advisors, export advisors will do the research for you and reply directly with answers to your trade-related questions. The second is called Enlist for those companies that need to ship goods and you're looking for freight forwarders. EDC has curated a list of, we vetted a list of freight forwarders and logistics providers, and EDC's Enlist tool can help you find the right partner to provide you it gives a set of search filters essentially based on industry, location, and your country of destination to help you pick the right partners. Edc Company Insights is also a very useful tool. It's interactive and it will allow you to find reliable and trustworthy information on companies that you may be looking to do business with anywhere in the world. It's meant to guide exporters step by step, helping you conduct part of the due diligence that you should be doing when you're getting into business with anybody around the world when working with new partners. Country information. EDC has a vast economics team that conducts research and provides specific information country by country. And we actually publish what EDC's position is for each country on our website. These research tools, again, can help you make better informed decisions based on countries you're looking to target for your growth. No matter the size of your business, you can leverage these tools. And finally, EDC also offers many different guides and ebooks through our Trade Insights website. that can give you a wealth of information. These are downloadable, just like this, this guide on doing business in Mexico. Or there's also one on doing business in the European Union, just as an example. The content in these guides can save you a lot of time when you're researching a market, and which is super important, as was explained in Emiliano's presentation. I think at this point, we're very close to time, but if there are any questions, we'll stay on and answer any questions. Maybe you'll want to add them in the chat box, and we're happy to answer any of your questions. Else, if you go to the next slide, you can also jot down the contact information to please reach out to EDC. Either call us at our 1-800 number. That's usually the best. You can speak to one of our export trade advisors who can guide you and provide the information that you require. Again, thank you for joining us today, and we hope you found the information in our session today valuable.
Well, thank you, Jen, again for being here with us today, and I'm hoping that anybody that has any further questions. I don't see the questions right now on the chat, so because we are right on time, it's at 3:51. We're gonna close it off, but feel free to send us messages even through the Hopin tool, and we'll be able to answer those questions as well. Thank you so much. Bye.